Welcome. I'm Deneen Matsuda, and it is Pi Day time. I don't know if you've been talking about it with your students, but my students have been talking a lot about Pi Day because I've changed the way I do it. I used to spend Pi Day learning about pi, and that proved to be not very successful. It was just too much information in one day. And what I've done is really scaled back. I don't do near the quantity of Pi Day activities. I've just really simplified it for my students, and I do it for a week. And something that I really focused on this year, which I'm pretty excited about, is incorporating measurement into our Pi Day activities. So I'm, getting multiple standards in at one time. We just spent one day talking about what circumference was and measuring the circumference of various things in our classroom using string and how challenging that was. And they quickly realized how many hands it takes how many fingers it takes to measure something. I started so simply with just saying, why wouldn't it be okay to measure the circumference, the distance around a circle with a ruler? And surprisingly, several students couldn't figure that out. They're like, well, can't you just keep moving it, moving it, moving it? But many students said, well, there are no edges, there are no corners. So when they, experimented with that, then I said, wouldn't it be nice if there were an easier way to do it? And mathematicians have indeed created that using a formula. And, at the very beginning of the year on map testing, I remember Kiara had a circumference question. And I said, oh, I would love to teach you how to do this right now while you're taking your test so you could get it right. But I can't, but I will teach it to you later on. And I said, this is the day. This is the day I'm going to teach you how to do circumference, and hopefully it'll show up again on another map test in the spring. But we started with formula. The circumference is pi times diameter. And, I always try to provide a simple level and a more advanced level. So, I even taught them it could just be pi d. And then we practiced that. We practiced measuring with a string. And then we practiced using the formula. And it took a few days. For some students, the formula concept was just too complex for them. But I just kept introducing it and kept introducing it until they started to feel more comfortable with it. I'm not planning to, I know, Stanley, don't listen to this. I'm not even going to teach them about area of a circle this year. Pi r squared. That's just such a fun concept, but I'm just sticking with circumference for now. And then I had them practice, when they measured, are you going to use a centimeter? Are you going to use inches? And then they were never right on the inch. It was always a quarter of an inch, a half an inch, 3/4 of an inch. And then when we put that into our calculators, what does that look like? Well, 3/4 is, and this was so exciting. I said, what is 3/4 in a decimal? We haven't studied decimals yet, but I'm planting little seeds for them. And Catherine thought, and she said, 75 cents. And what does that look like in a decimal? 0.75. So the possibilities with pi are endless, and we can even do it far more simply. I haven't pulled out any of my packets this year at all. We've just been simply experimenting with pi. And then talking about the ish of it. When I use a string, it's going to be, the circumference will be something like it was, remember it was, 8.5 inches. But then when we used the formula, it was 8.66. And so I had to ask them, are we close? Is it ish? Is it near the estimate? Is it similar? The formula and the actual string? Yes, it is. And why is it off? And then we talked about how string can be stretched and, the different tensions. So it's just so much fun to study. And if you have already, planned your lessons for next week, it's okay to do pi lessons even the day after pi. Like we didn't even get to do Pi Day on March 14th this year because it was Grandparents' Day. So we're doing it all on March 17. And so the highlight of March 17, I want to do some painting of circles. I usually do something with art, but we have our pi memorization, recitation of the digits. And no, this means nothing. It doesn't mean you are an advanced math student if you can memorize X number of digits of pi. It's just simply an exercise. But this year, my students are taking it in new areas that I've never seen. Look what Aubrey did. This is about the size that I give them. And they always say, what if I memorize more digits than are on your sheet? And I said, well, if you do, I don't know what we'll do. We'll just have to get a new sheet, I guess. No one has gotten even close to the bottom of this. This is a lot of digits. But look how she clumped them. Another student, let's see, it was Naomi. She wrote dates. I did this 2 weeks in advance, and she gave herself date points. Like, by this date, I want to have this many digits memorized. And I've taken pictures of these, so hopefully Wonderful Stanley is showing them to you. And then Noelle did something too. These 3 girls did things I've never seen. Noelle, as you can see, has it all in colors. It's all color-coded. And Stanley noticed something else about her color codes. Like, I think are the ones all one color? All the 2s are one color. All the 3s are one color. It's a work of art, and I really want it when she's done, but I know she's going to want to keep it for herself. And so I'll just probably make a color copy of it because it's just so interesting. The most my students have ever memorized was Ava Grossenbach. She is now in the 8th grade, and she memorized 139 digits of pi. We'll see what we get to next year or this year. You know, even 20 is more than I can do. This week, we were outside. I was outside with a group of students. I dragged one of my giant whiteboards outside, and we were working on our 8s and 7 multiplication tables. And Zoe, who Ava's in 7th grade now. Excuse me, Ava's in 7th grade. Zoe is in 8th grade. Zoe was walking by. Now, Zoe is a student who admittedly hated math all her life. And it was in 4th grade that she began to fall in love with math. And she was walking by and heard us saying our multiplication tables, and she just started, she goes, isn't it Pi Day time? Are you getting ready for Pi Day? And then started reciting digits that she had memorized in pi. And, you know, how did some of these digits stick with her 4 years later? But you just never know. And it was a moment of confidence for her. And then my littles were able to look at this big 8th grader and see, wow, she still remembers this. I have to tell you about Naomi before I say goodbye to you. Naomi is a new student this year, and she can be very quiet. Now, she raises her hand, she participates, she advocates for herself. When she needs something, she will come and ask me for it, but she has never all year come to me and initiated a conversation. And it's not because we're not close. I think we're very tight, but that's just not what she does. But about a week ago, Naomi came to me and she said, I can't wait for Pi Day on the day we get to say the digits. And it just, my heart exploded because she initiated a conversation with me, the first of the year, and it was about math. And when I came home to tell Wonderful Stanley about it, he said, Deneen, that is why you do different things all year long with your students, so that you can reach all of the students. You don't just do the same thing every day for math. Except for one of my students last year who said one day, I really like math worksheets. And I don't fill that cup for my students. I really don't. We get very few math worksheets. But I'm not too worried about her because she'll have plenty of worksheets in her future. And heaven knows she's had them, in her past. So it's going to be okay. I'm so lucky because I have a family who supports my endeavors, and Stanley's older brother George and his wife Carol found these pins when they were out shopping and bought them for my class. I'm going to give one to the winner, and they bought me a whole bunch of them. So every year I'm going to add this now to Pi Day. And of course we do eat pie on Pi Day. And then I decided, I've never done this before, but I went on Amazon to see how expensive is it to buy, maybe not the nice metal buttons, but they have cheap pie buttons, and sure enough they do. So I went ahead and I bought 64 buttons on Amazon for, let's see, $20. And what I'm going to do is give one of those buttons to every student who participates in our contest. So that's what we're doing for Pi Day, and I hope that you will somehow incorporate a pie activity. I have previous pie videos that I've done which are much more complex than what I'm sharing with you today, but I'm really trying to keep it simple and hoping that in simplifying they can learn more deeply. And I wish you a happy Pi Day, and I'll see you next week. I'm Janine Matsuda. Thanks so much for watching, and don't forget
to like and subscribe!